Arduino is a small open-source microcontroller that can be used to build interactive projects. It is a simple platform that provides a development environment for writing applications.
Arduino was launched in 2005 as a student project in the Interaction Design Institute Ivrea in Italy. It was estimated that in 2013, 700,000 official boards were in use all around the world.
So my name is David Cuartielles. I'm one of the founders of Arduino, and so I'm part of the Arduino board, which is made of 5 people. And I've been lately helping building up the Malmö office in Sweden for the last year and a half. And I currently run European research projects and design new products. I spend 100% of my time working with Arduino related things, because even when I work in education, I basically work teaching about Arduino or open source technologies around the Arduino ecosystem, like could be pure data processing or something like that. So I could say I spend 100% of my time working with things related to Arduino, whether it's as part of the company or as part of some education institution like Malmö University or Valencia University in Spain, where I usually teach. Doesn't matter, it's always on the same topic, more or less. I don't know, multitasker.
Okay.
Probably there. Yeah, I mean, but I like to consider myself an independent researcher, so because independently of whether I work for Arduino or I work for myself, I have a line of research as something that interests me. So I comply with my deadlines, so I compromise, I will make this project, I try to bring it up on time, and so on. But then I have my own line of work with my own commitment to a PhD that I will probably finish one day. Entrepreneurship for me has been a necessity. I mean, it's not like I need money. I'm an engineer, I could have worked in many different places. I had a pretty good job when I moved to Sweden. Or before I moved to Sweden, I had a pretty good job when I moved to Sweden, and then I basically realized that I needed a way to implement the projects I was interested in. So becoming an entrepreneur was key to be able to get in the money, to be able to do the things I wanted to do. So, and that's actually why I had to become one. So I have had up to like 5 companies at a time outside Arduino with different people. Also because it's very easy in Sweden to just create a company quickly. You have a concept together with somebody. And I think it's a really powerful tool because it puts the legal aspects very easily in place in the first day, and then you can start working with stuff. And I think many people forget about this when they're building stuff. They tend to forget how they're going to share ownership of things, how they're going to build stuff. They think that is not the fun part, and of course it's not the fun part. But at some point you're going to come and say, hey guys, I worked this many hours, or I did this thing, or I invested this much money. And the only way of proving it is if you have some sort of legal structure. And companies in Sweden are a really good tool to build that. So entrepreneurship to me is actually a tool to be able to do other things. Okay, I don't have an MBA or anything like that. That's not my role in the company. I'm not interested in that. But before creating Arduino, I had been running not really a company, but I had my own business since I was a child. I paid most of my books at university because I was teaching other people, so I had a business around teaching since I was 14 years old, more or less. And then once I finished university, I tried to create a company with my partners at university. It didn't work out because they were more interested in getting jobs. And then I went to Sweden, and as soon as I made it to Sweden, I started to get involved in other projects. So I had to create my own company to be able to be paid on top of my normal job and to be able to pay taxes and declare everything I was doing. So I would say like I've always been into it, so I learned a lot about it, and by the time we made it into Arduino, it was kind of a given. But I have to say that in Arduino, we never thought about Arduino as a company in the first place. So we thought about it as an open source project, and for the first 5 years, the only thing we did was to create a company to collect some of the royalties the system was generating, so we could spend it in playing flying tickets, so we could meet up and discuss other things, or inviting friends, developer friends, to like kind of hackathons to develop new things or new features with us and so on. So we didn't have the money for us to spend. We had the money for us to create new things. And I think that's one of the keys of the success of Arduino, is that we never really considered that money as, something we wanted to do, let's say, business-wise. And it wasn't until really 2010 that we started to consider building a company around it and so on. It was until 2012 when we really started seriously as a company. We had to make the hardware open source because we had had experiences in the past in other projects, and we realized that when you have an educational tool, it needs to be open. It needs to be open because if you have some sort of like social consciousness, you need your tools to survive you. So if we died, all of us, in a car crash accident tomorrow, we know there is a legacy, which is that the open source designs that all people can take over and keep on providing the schools with those materials. I think it's very important. Having cases before where open source projects have disappeared because the owner has decided not to touch it again, right? But if you start to like feed schools, feed education systems that they actually do have to invest money and time, if you don't make it open source, you're really breaking a compromise with people. I think that was our reason for making it open source. So it had nothing to do really with money. And on the other hand, it proved to be a very powerful marketing tool. We didn't really intend it to be a marketing tool, but of course, people bought into the story because of that. On top of open source, well, I would say it was a really good tool in comparison with whatever existed before. It was very cheap. We decided it had to be as expensive as a textbook. So we checked the average textbook in 2005 for a Swedish student was 250 crowns. So we said, okay, it has to cost 250 crowns. So we really look at it that way. So I guess it was price, it was that had really good content, and it was very accessible and it worked in every operating system. Those are the key aspects. Yeah, definitely. I mean, we have always been innovating into new things, and now we're starting to really understand how this works as a business. So we're starting to understand which are the needs of this business, which kind of people you need to have in the company, how you can support your software, how you can design your hardware. So of course, now we do have a plan, there is actually a business plan around these things, which is like 2 years ago, more or less. But in the beginning, we were making very much like assembly decisions. Like we were sitting together, actually on the internet, because we were 5 people in 5 different countries, but we were meeting on the internet and discussing, how shall we do this? What shall we buy? Shall we invest in these things? Shall we make a bigger server? Because we get too much traffic. Shall we do this other thing? So we realized that we needed a structure, and we worked in building a structure, and now we do have a structure, and the results are very clear. Now we have 50 people, 6 companies in 6 countries, so I think it's working really well. That's a real question. Well, at this point, we hired a COO, like a really competent guy with a lot of experience, called Pietro, that is an old friend to Massimo, and I think he really managed to figure out how we work as a group. So he made himself space among the group, and I think that's very important to figure out something like that. People that you really trust, because you're gonna put your baby in somebody else's hands, right? And then, and this person is making sure that our store starts performing properly, that our technical team is working in tasks that are actually generating money for the company, but at the same time are interesting for them, because we want our team to be, feeling special because they work for Arduino. So I think finding people that are, from the outside, that can actually look at your model and tell you, this is a flaw, here you should improve this, and so on, is very important to make this thing work.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's how we plan to grow, basically, having external experts to help us look at stuff. Well, to me, the motivation is that it's a project that I helped create it from the first day, so it's my baby, so to say, right? So of course, to me, that's the biggest motivation. have to say sometimes I've of course thought about how much time it takes for the rest of my life and so on. But on the other hand, if I think about it, thanks to Arduino, I traveled the whole world. Actually, I met my wife. It's like I own a lot to this project. And as a person, it really helped me mature. Like, it helped me understand what is important, what is not important, and I'm really at the level where I started to really be able to take in distance of it and say, okay, now I see it really as a company, and I know what it needs to be done. There's some process to be set up. In the beginning, when you're the entrepreneur, you want to be everywhere. You want to touch everything. Like, I want to see the economy. I want to do this. I want to discuss with this person about possible business. But then at some point you realize, wait. This is a big machine. You need to put a proper economist or somebody with an MBA to take care of business development, because I'm really good thinking about new concepts and crazy things, and connecting something to the internet and something that all people can do. It takes me half an hour, but it takes me 3 days to make the economy that a proper economist makes in one afternoon. At some point I was spending literally 3.5 work days a week doing the economy of our office, because I'm not an expert, because I'm really not interested, and because as soon as the phone was ringing for something else, I was just jumping on it instead of doing this thing, right? And now we have an economist who's an expert, and she's fantastic, and she can even make predictions and tell me, David, next month you can actually buy this machine, you can actually think about this, you can actually pay people a trip somewhere. It's like, and that's something I couldn't do myself. So I think that one of the biggest issues with entrepreneurship is that you want to be taking care of the whole thing all the time, and you need to figure out how to let things go. Well, the very negative one is, of course, that as an entrepreneur, you're very committed to your project, and you really like it, and you sell it to everybody, directly or indirectly, right? You sell it to your own team. You tell them, guys, this is very important. We are going to build this thing. But of course, people have their own lives, right? And I think one of the hardest things is that you have to learn to let people go. And I think that's really, really hard. You really build something with people. You build your company, it's like your family to some extent. But at some point, everybody are not like you. They have other needs, they have their families, they want to start something else. So it's not about your company, it's about themselves. So you need to let people go. And it's really, really sad when that moment comes and somebody you've been working with for the last 2 years suddenly has to go. But it's normal. And learning to accept that is really, really tough. Because as I said, you build this with your soul, right? You really put a lot of energy and emotions into it. And then the positive thing is when actually you finish a big project and you get that feeling like it's done. It's like it's kind of hard to get that, because in open source never anything is done. But when you put a lot of effort and you have a big deadline, like when in our talk I was presenting this light installation we made in Jakarta. It took us 16 days to finish. And then the moment it was done, this 100 meters light installation with 3,800 lamps, with a total of 15,000 LEDs, right? That took 16 days to work out, because it was raining 12 hours a day, and we had to sit in a tent waiting for the rain to stop, and it took 1 hour to dry the whole installation if we could start turning the power on and test the electronics, and so it was really, really tough working conditions. The day that finished, when I sat down in the airplane to fly back home, that's an amazing feeling, right? It's like you sit down in a plane and you have had so much adrenaline flowing through your body during the last 10 days or 15 days or whatever that you can't even sleep. Right? But it's a great feeling, because you basically enjoy, everything, both the good and the bad of that work. Because there is, of course, a lot of bad things when you make something like that. But when it works and when it's done, it's just fantastic. You cannot exchange that almost for anything.